Hello everyone, happy live Thursday from the studio, or in the case of today, downstairs. You can see I'm standing in the wool. I'm going to kind of start slowly here to give people a sec there to jump in. Hey Sandy, hey Elsa Louise, Dawn, nice to see you come in. Thank you for joining me this Thursday. I'm downstairs to be in the little wall of yarn here because it's a little chilly in Ireland at the moment, which I seem to, I inadvertently start talking about the weather every time I hop on here. I suspect a part of it is just to give you a sense of place so that you can feel what I'm feeling right here. And I'm down here because it's nice and cozy with the wool, and over here I've got the radiator right next to me, which is very, very cozy. So what's the weather like where you are now? Is it starting to feel a little bit wintry? There might be some parts of the world. I think that you've probably started getting a bit of snow. There's Jane, you're from Canada. Hey, have you got some snow up there yet? I imagine you're probably a lot more likely to have snow than we are here. It's a very rare occurrence down in the south of Ireland. We've got some foggy Newfoundland. Okay, fog, not snow, not quite the same thing. But yeah, I hope you're staying warm and wrapped up in woolies. You may notice something here. You've got Joan, it's -5 and a snowfall warning in BC, Canada. Dreary in Pittsburgh, Western New York, dreary. The snow is gone and raining. All right, well, it would sound like we're probably kind of the same as the rest of the world, just haven't had the snow yet. Temperatures dropping down, everyone's crawling along the roads. It takes about twice as long to get anywhere because everyone's driving very slowly. Of course, if you've got any long stretch of cold weather here, it's suddenly people get a bit sick of driving slowly and people are driving like crazy people at that point. Else Louise, you've got a large pile of you do a large pile of wool and roll in it like leaves. Oh, that sounds really nice. Lady Doc, great knitting weather. It is, if you're warm enough, because I have discovered the danger when I get cold, my fingers get stiff. So I have to make sure that I've got a big fire going, I've got all the animals piled up on top of me, and ideally I've gone for a walk or done something to move myself, and then when I sit down, my fingers are warm, my hands are warm, and they will work. But if I'm too, like right now, my fingers are actually quite stiff because I'm not very cold, but my extremities are. And I don't think I could actually comfortably knit right now. So that's something you have to actually think about when you're knitting, is whether you are going to stay warm enough or not. If there's something you want to hear about today, pop it up here. I have a few things I wanted to tell you about. First one being, I'm wearing it, and I've got the other one down here. This week, the last two patterns from our Celtic Knits 2022 have been released. It took us a very, very long time to release them, and that was because we didn't have yarn for yarn kits. We were sadly low on our Blosta, particularly in relation to a lot of the kit colours. The start of this week, we had 12 huge boxes came from Donegal, and everything has been restocked. So that's why I'm down here. I'm just kind of admiring the wall of Blosta that's standing behind me. So all the colours are back in stock. And we have two extra ones here. These ones here are Blossom and Rust, and these two were dyed by Jenny from Townhouse Yarns. They were originally custom dyed for us for the Celtic Knits Club, and she has dyed a slight little bit more batches of them that we have. They've been selling off fast, but there is a little of each left. So if you want to get your hands on these once-off colour hand-dyed yarns in Blosta, then you might want to go grab them. I think it's kind of up under hand-dyed Blosta, or if you get one of the kits for this, they'll be in that as well. But they were, this one you can see I'm wearing here with the Leah, which is the grey colour for this colour here, or for this sweater here. And this is the wrap, and this is the Blossom colour with the burgundy. And the burgundy colour has been out of stock for a while, and it's in fact one of our more popular colours. It kind of seems to hop out of the shop very quickly when it's in stock. Love the rust. Is that the yarn and jumper? Yes, that's right. This colour, this is the rust with the Leah. So if I can find, here's Leah, which is the dark grey. So I'll put it down. So that would be the rust, and the Leah are in the two I'm wearing. So this is the Ualach sweater. And the you can see there's variety behind me here as well. So this one, if you were going to go do it with the blossom and the burgundy color, I'd suggest starting with the blossom up here for this one and then transitioning into the burgundy, because that way it kind of makes for a slightly cheaper combination, because you use less of that top section of the hand dyed yarn, and then the bulk of it is going to be in the mill dyed yarn, which is going to be a little bit less expensive. So it's a good way of making the most of hand dyed yarn, but not necessarily doing an entire garment in it. So you can kind of combine the two. This was one of the first top-down circular yokes that I've knit that I was really, really happy with the fit. I've done a lot of them and I've tweaked them and they've been okay, but I haven't been completely and utterly satisfied with them. But this one I'm really happy with. So the key to it is, well, as you've probably known, when you knit top-down, you want to go do short rows across the back of the neck in order to make the front lower relative to the back. So I always knew about that, and so I would go do short rows when I was doing them first of all. And then what would happen is if you only do short rows and you don't do the increases at the same time, it just kind of stands like that, like a little wedge at the back, but just sits up, and it just doesn't lie very well. So I discovered that when you're doing your short rows, if you do increases across the back at the same time, it sits much more tidily and it sits much, much better on your shoulders. So once I had done that, it really kind of opened it up and made it a much more comfortable one to wear. So from there you come down and there's a big increase here where I've got tutorials on that to make sure you can get the best possible increase with no holes. You zigzag across here and then do a decrease down here. Then you've got another big increase here for the top of the waves, a series of stripes, and the same thing down here. So it's a very gentle A-line sweater. So there's increases that are coming down here, but just very slightly. It's not a very dramatic A-line. There was one particular person in the club who did this all in one color. She just picked, I think it was the Gilliatt color, this green. She actually got enough of the green and she did the whole thing in green and did a wider neckline up there. And it was really, really beautiful combination. Sandy, it's a beautiful design, but you're short and big bottoms, so you're afraid of jumpers would make you look more stumpy. Let me put this up here. There are ways of kind of being able to alternate it. I think maybe the one color version might be a good option for you, because then you don't have the potential of kind of cutting your length with different stripes. So a one color version I think could really be a big help for you with that. Elsa Louise, you're thinking the design would look good in your husband. Ooh, that would be nice. If you're doing a male version, I would suggest not doing the A-line, and the only adjustments you'd need to make for stitch count down here would be to make sure you had the right number of stitches for your pattern repeats. Other than that, it could definitely be a completely unisex sweater pattern. There's no doubt about it. Just kind of pick one of the larger sizes, make sure it's wide enough for his shoulders up here. And men often end up kind of going with a much greater amount of ease. So like for the women's version, like I'm suggesting generally kind of 3 to 5 inches of ease, but you might actually kind of go either in the upper end of that or possibly even up to maybe 7-8 inches of ease for the men's sweater. They're just more likely to need a bigger size sweater, bigger sleeves between their arms, maybe bigger, but they just prefer it a little bit looser. Just checking that I've got Sandy, the green is lovely. It is, isn't it? It's one of the prettiest greens. That one is called Gilliatt, which is the Irish for woods. So I've had a few questions as well as we were going through when I'm doing necklines as to why I tend to do them afterwards. And believe it or not, there's a really, really good reason for that. Multiple reasons, in fact. So when I'm doing top down, particularly something like a raglan or a circular yoke, the whole weight of the sweater is being held by the neck, so everything hangs from here. So you can actually see what a strain that's going to put on the neckline and how likely it is to stretch out and likely it is to get loose and splayed out, particularly across the back. So there's a few ways you can adjust that or try to modify it a little bit and make it less likely to stretch out. And a big one I find is casting on underneath, but using a nice firm cast on, so maybe a cable cast on or a tight long tail cast on. Then when you finish, you pick up stitches for the edge And when you do the bind off, it's going to tighten it up a little bit. You can do it a little bit tighter. So that way you've got the cast on, you've got an extra bind off, and even where the stitches are picked up, it gives it a little bit more cohesion. You've also got the option by picking up the edging afterwards and working the edging from this point up of adjusting the neckline. So if the neckline is too small, all you need to put on is just a very small edging, like just maybe an I-cord or something really small like that. If it's too open for you, you could actually either decrease stitches as you're going along or decrease the needle size to kind of bring it up. And you could potentially even have the option of doing a turtleneck or something that's more complete as you come along. So by actually putting the edging in afterwards, it gives you a lot more control of the fit and holding that shape at the top. But it is something I've been asked quite a bit, because if you're looking at it and you go, it's like, well, why am I coming back and putting the edging on? I'm starting there anyway. And there is, in fact, a very good reason from a stability point of view, because if you've done, some of you may have done top down, where the neck ends up spreading out or it doesn't hold its shape, and that's often where it's most likely to get distorted and stretched out. So by putting it in with something that you can tighten it up, you can potentially bypass that. So that's my little talk on necklines and how this works here. So this is the first of the patterns, which is the Ualach sweater, and there's also the Ualach wrap. And I should actually tell you, anyone who's above from my website before will probably know this, that I put up lots of different options. So your best bet is, if you want to get the yarn and a pattern or maybe a workshop or whatever with it, go into the yarn kits and pick the colors or the size that you want. And then at the bottom of that, I've put add-ons where you can add the pattern on if you just want the pattern. If you want the full workshop, then just buy the workshop, because the pattern will be included within the workshop. And that way you can kind of pick what you want to do, or if you've already got the pattern, you just have to get the yarn kit. So there's method in my madness for dividing these things down. I just find it works better by having them put in separate spots, but shown all together so that you can see them all together. And if you've done these techniques before, then the pattern should be sufficient. If there's some parts that are new to you or you'd like a little bit more support, then jump into the workshop, because there'll be videos showing you how to work through each one. So you can pick the level that you need or you want, or is going to give you the best chance of getting to the end of your project and being happy with it. Lady Doc, you like the idea of adding the neckline last? Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And sometimes like with this one, because I wanted to make sure I had enough of this yarn, I did as far as the division. And when I had come back to, before I had taken the sleeves off, I did the neckline then to make sure everything sat where I wanted it to sit. Liz, you never knew the pattern was included with the workshop. Yes, it is. It doesn't always go into, it's not going to go through your Ravelry library with that, but like within the workshop itself, there is the actual pattern inside there. So yeah, the workshop is actually a pretty good deal if you want the videos, because you get it all together. So this is the wrap. So you can probably see, let me come up here. You can see it's the same pattern stitches in this, and it's showing it in the two different colors. When you start this particular one, it starts with a provisional cast on across the middle here, and then you work one side in the middle out this way, and then you do the other side in the middle out that way. So that way it's totally symmetrical from the middle out, and it finishes off with moss stitch. So you start off with this itty bitty panel in the middle, and you can make it as wide as you want if you want to make it bigger or you want to make it smaller. Hang on, there's a couple of questions coming over here. Kastja, you were saying the sweater has a perfect fit. Your Dutch friend is so happy with hers too. Oh, that's really good. I'm really happy with the fit of this sweater. It sits nicely at the shoulder, and it sits down better than most circular yokes I've come across. Sandy, you like the idea of the workshop. You usually knit toys or do guerrilla knitting. You're not experienced knitting practical stuff like jumpers, socks and wraps. Yeah, workshops are great. The workshops were completely accidental, because when I was doing knit-alongs, I was talking about, I'd show different techniques about it, and then that built into me going ahead and saying, actually, as I'm knitting it anyway, I might as well record each section as I'm doing it. And that went from just knit-alongs into every single pattern I'm doing. I've actually changed the whole workflow of how I work now, is that I take little sections, figure out every point where there's a new part that I'm working on. And I'll stop knitting on it until I get in front of the camera, and then I'll record the next section as I'm going through. So you're literally knitting through the entire thing with me in the workshops. Now, you're not physically watching the whole thing, but every time there's a new technique, I'll pull the camera out and show you what's happening on the camera. You're not a confident knitter, so you love the workshops and refer back to them often. That's really nice. It's like, and that was the whole idea, is that if you're somewhere that you can't find a local yarn shop to go to, or you don't have a friend that knits, to actually be able to sit with someone as they're knitting through makes a really big difference, because words on the page can sometimes be misinterpreted. And a lot of times knitters, we tend to be visual, and so being able to see what I'm doing on the needles, you may frequently get it much quicker, or even pick up bits that you never occur to you, that, you know, small tips that I don't even think about, that I'll just add in. You know, like when I'm doing underarms, I'll often pick up extra stitches on each side and decrease them straight away to make sure that there's no holes there. I don't even kind of think about it. I'll just do it if it looks like there's a gap. And then if I'm knitting through in the workshop, it may not be in the pattern, but I'll kind of walk through what I'm doing anyway. Liz, you'll be doing that in the future, as you usually buy patterns and end up buying the workshop when you can't figure something out. All right, workshop first, Liz. Workshop first. Yeah, it is. If you're learning new techniques, video workshops make a big difference. They're a big help. I mean, it slows down my pattern development because I'm doing full workshops with each one. But I find that I've got much happier knitters coming out the other end with workshops. So that's why I go through the process. But it's a slower process, but one that's worthwhile. So yeah, with this one, this is a good techniques one, and it's fairly modifiable, and the whole thing was actually designed to fit the yarn amount. So there was 2 skeins of the blossom and 2 skeins of the burgundy, and we started with the central one on each side, and then the yarn is divided up, and each side is picked up and it's worked this side out, or it's worked this side out. And again, like with the sweater, the wrap is something that you could also do in one color. You could actually go ahead and say, I'm just going to do this in one color, do the series of the stockinette stitch and all of the cables and all of the waves, and just do it in one color. You could make it bigger and just kind of have fun with introducing series of stripes, or adding some more of the cables as you go along. So this one, once you divide your yarn in half after you do the middle section, then you can just keep working out for as much yarn as you've got on each side. So it's quite easy to modify. I've got a blooper video of when I was actually, when this came back, because the sample, I'd written it up, sent it to a sample knitter, and she was working through, and when it came back, she was like, I'm kind of running out of yarn. So I said, send back what you've got. She had done like one side, and she had done about halfway through the other side. And I realized that what I thought was going to be knit was not, but I had forgotten a couple of steps along the way, and the yarn usage was totally off. So I did some serious surgery on this to adjust for the amount of yarn to make sure that each side measured up. So it was a very interesting process. Liz, you don't know where I get the time to do it all. Oh, you're a great one to say that, Liz, considering how much knitting you get done. I do a lot less knitting these days. I do a lot more emails, videos, tutorials, and the knitting has kind of been confined to my evening hours now, unless I happen to have time to go up and record a video upstairs. But yeah, there's much less knitting than there used to be, which is kind of a shame, because maybe one of these days I'll get back to it. Sandy, it'd be lovely to make a jumper and wrap set and use the yoke colour for the whole wrap. Oh, you're right. Like if you had this and you had just one that kind of matched across the top, oh, that'd be gorgeous. And particularly if you had, like, you could wear it like this, if you had like a really nice brooch and kind of have it pinned up across the side here. Have I named my mascot? No, I have not named the mascot, Elsa Louise. I'm waiting for names. I need to get some more names up there. I should have brought them down here as well with me. It would be great to make a woolly hat with a coordinating design. Oh yes, I'd be all cables all over. Yeah, because this one would make, I think, a nice hat, or even a series of these with some stripes could be a very pretty hat. I haven't done it, but maybe that will be a quick January project for an extra an extra little hat pattern. But yeah, the two of them together, I think with the stripes and a hat would be particularly nice. And you could even do a bobble with both of the colours together. Could be a lot of fun. So I don't know if any of you have noticed, if you're on my newsletter, I have started something that began at the start of this week that's going to be going on for the next few weeks. I'm doing a Giftmas where I'm giving back to you, all the knitters out there over Christmas. So make sure you're on my newsletter so that you're actually going to get the emails. The start of the week there was a discount for the Ualach sets. Tomorrow we're going to have a free pattern is coming out to you, so make sure you're on the list so that it's coming on your way out. And I want to show you something new that we've just got up. It is the little mini sweater pattern here. Liz got a set of this as a little thank you in the post, so she has already started on these. But there are these little dinky sweater patterns with the, I don't know if you can see it, there's a tiny hanger that's in them here. And the actual, the pattern, we've got some yarn kits that we've put together. We've called it, what is it, the Sugar Pine Decoration. And they're in these little coral mini kits here. So the mini kits, we've put 6 small balls in here. And 2 balls will do let me see if I can find the smalls. Here we go, small sweater. So 2 balls will do 2 colours where you alternate. So one colour would have this as the main colour and the other one would have this as the main colour. But tied with that, tied with this, I've actually also done a full vlog. So this is another part of the gift that I've got for you. If it's just up on YouTube today, it's a vlog where it's basically a full workshop going through this, where I'm talking about the cast on, I'm showing the increases for the raglan, how to do stripes in the round without jogs, which is quite tricky. It's never going to be absolutely perfect, but if you can see here, this is the start of the round, and it's pretty smooth as jogs go. And then the final thing is how to work these little sleeves and the decreases. So this is all up on YouTube right now on the vlog. Pattern's not in there, but I am just working through all of the techniques. So if you get, the kit will come with the printed pattern, which is just in a little leaflet here, it's as dinky as the pattern. It's a tiny little leaflet as well to go with it. But it's a really, really good one. If you have not done top-down knitting before, you will learn every single technique that you need for top-down knitting in this tiny thing. And you get a Christmas decoration to boot for your tree. So I think that it's a very, very good way of learning each of the techniques, and then you can translate that into something for yourself or a children's knitting pattern or something, or not knitting pattern, a children's sweater and things like that. So it is a lot of fun. And when I started, I had intended on doing a more traditional Christmas ornament. So I sat down and maybe I'll do a star or a lace little kind of icicle thingy, and I kind of sitting there knitting, and I kept going back to sweaters. So as I'm sitting there, I'm like, why don't I just knit a sweater? I teach people all the techniques that I like, but I never actually succeeded in doing a more traditional decoration. But I think these make really nice decorations. Liz, you have plans for the mini sweaters for next year. Excellent. And the coral colours make a really, really good yarn for it, because you can use any yarn. Like if you've got like a lightish, these are like a sports weight yarn, so like even a DK would make a bigger one. Sports weight or sock weight are going to make very small little ones, and because it's not to fit anyone, you can use any yarn and then the needle size to correspond with it. If you go for a bigger yarn, it's obviously going to be a bigger sweater. It'll be closer to something that would probably fit on a toy and things like that. Only thing is though, the neck, if you're going to kind of size it up for a toy, you may need to do something about that, possibly put a button in or leave it open for a few rows, because that's the only spot that you may potentially run into issues if you were trying to actually put it on a not a human, but a human replica or something along those lines. Liz, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with these mini sweaters next year. And you could also, like with this one, it was just a series of stripes. One thing that you could do if you wanted to put it as people's names, you could do duplicate stitch, where you could put the names, a letter on afterwards. or I should actually, I don't think I've got a technique video up on that, but I can do it where you can add anything afterwards with the colour by using duplicate stitch, and it's quite satisfying to do. You can also use it to fix things, but I must get something up on duplicate stitch if you haven't done it before. Liz, you'd say it would fit Elf on the Shelf. It would fit it, but it would not go over its head. So you might want to change it to a cardigan if you wanted to get it on an Elf on the Shelf, I think, because I think it's the head is what's going to catch you if you were trying to fit it over something. Looking to see, I know there was something else I meant to say to you today. Ah, yes, I don't know if there's anyone on here who is local to me, but next week we're also trying to do a little Giftmas in the store here. So we'll have a few little special offers in person. And next Thursday, this day, next week, from 5 until 7, we're going to have some late night openings. And if people want to come and even hang out and just knit for a little bit, and we'll have a few little nibbles, Christmas nibbles, maybe some mince pies, mulled wine, perhaps some non-alcoholic mulled wine for anyone who's going to do something afterwards. But if you are in Cork and you're around next Thursday night, please do drop in. Kathy, you'd love you like the sweaters. You could add numbers and have kids put each day, put one on each day of December. Oh, you totally could. That would be so cute. Could I show how to adjust it to make it opening to fit toys like an elf on the shelf, please? My main suggestion for that would be, see the way it starts from the top down, so you cast on all of these stitches at the same time. If you just left those stitches flat, and so that first section as you're coming down, you just knit flat and then don't join into the round till later, you'll then have a little opening down the back section that you could just put a button on top of it. Or alternatively, you could change it into something like a cardigan, where again, instead of doing it in the round, you'll just do it flat, but just leave it open down the middle and go back and forth in rows rather than round and round in circles is probably the best way of doing it. And there is something else I wanted to show you. Last week, it might have been maybe 2 weeks ago, I was telling you about how we had kind of fallen in love with Gilliatt, and the fact that even though we had intended on discontinuing it, we decided we liked it so much we just started getting more colours. Well, we've got even more colours. There's 3 new ones. There's only 2 of them on the website so far because we haven't managed to get a proper photograph of one of them. This one is Plume, which is a lovely teal blue. And this is the prettiest pink. I don't know if you can see it properly. It's like a dusty pink, a reddy pink. And this one is called Bois de Rose. Bois de Rose. I'm saying that wrong. My French is terrible. This is very hard to photograph. I think that Laura has gotten fairly close on the website, but it's very difficult. It's a lovely, deep pink colour. And like the nice thing about these is you can knit straight off them, which is quite satisfying if you want a quick knit and you just want to pull something out to not have to go wind them up first of all. The pleasure of instant gratification with your knitting is often underappreciated, I think. So not having to wind things up is quite satisfying. Let me pop this back on here. These are not on the website, but these are the Ito ones from last summer. They're various different, there's a few kind of cotton and lace weight ones that are combined, but we kind of reckoned that they're in shop here, so if anyone really does want to get hold of some, you can give us a shout, but otherwise it'll probably be when the season is right next spring, we'll put it on. What weight is that? The Gilliatt is, they call it kind of a worsted weight, but I actually think it's almost an Aran weight. It's quite deceptive, because it doesn't, when you hold it, it doesn't seem terribly thick. But as you knit it, it's a very, very bloomy yarn. So it knits best on 4.5 or 5 millimeter needles. And I find that it's a little heavier than worsted. I actually think it almost fits into an Aran weight, even though it doesn't look like it should be Aran weight. So it's a hard one to fit into a category is the best way of putting it. It was in, like I've got one here, this is a shawl that was knit in one of the red colours from the winter last year. Which is the shawl? This is the Canuck shawl. I'm just going to pull up the stitch pattern here so you can kind of see what the Gilliatt looks like knit up. I am in fact in the process of doing, it's Gilliatt, I'm doing Caelius, another version of Caelius in. It's a slightly, I'm using 4 millimeters, so it's slightly denser. and it's also, as well as being denser, it's not quite the same stitch gauge as the original pattern, which is 21 stitches. I'm getting about 20 stitches, but it's a looser fitting sweater, so I was actually quite happy to have it size up a little bit. Sandy, where is my shop? You're going to spend Christmas in Schull and you're flying back from Cork Airport. Our shop is on Tramore Road in Cork City, so if you are, where's the best way of putting it? If it's near Woody's, if you're in Woody's DIY and you come out, Tramore Road is along there. So Tramore Commercial Park is one of the parks near Cash and Carry Kitchens in the back of that building there. We will be closed for Christmas though, so we're open until midday on the 23rd, and then we'll reopen again. It's going to be on the 4th of January. So we're going to have a Christmas break where we will be closed here. But if you're there for longer than that, then please do come in. It'd be lovely to see you. So I think that's probably it for me this week. I will have, of course, some more little goodies and things to talk about next Thursday, and maybe give you a little walk around the shop while we're getting it ready and festive for all of our guests on Thursday night. So I'll see you next Thursday, and if you're around in Cork, please do drop in next Thursday night, 5 to 7. The more the merrier. I've got my knitting out, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So bye everyone.